Welcome back. In this module, we're going to talk about setting up your business, some of the core things that you need to be thinking about when it's time to set up your business. The first one is obviously a company name. What are you going to call your company? This is the name when you set up on Amazon that they're going to pay you by. So this could be your corporation name, it could be your partnership name, it could be your LLC name, but you're going to need a name that's a good name that represents you, that you can get and that you can get a trademark on. That's very important. Don't just pick some random name and later on you might have to change it because you can't get a trademark on it. There's ways to actually, we'll talk about that in a second, ways of actually checking to see if it's available. You also want to make sure like the social media handles are available, that you can get something similar on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok based on this name. You know, there's even a website called Namelix, Namelix.com. You can type in, I'm doing a dog brand. It'll give you all these random ideas. There's tons of tools like that. AI is another great place if you're familiar with ChatGPT to type in. I'm creating a brand around dogs and pets, and we're going to be selling leashes and dog bowls. And what are 20 good names that evoke walking your dog and loving them or something? And it'll give you all these cool ideas. So you need to come up with a name. That's your core company name. You'll see sometimes on Amazon these random brand names and stuff that are like just a bunch of letters put together. Oftentimes those are foreign-based sellers that are doing that, and they're doing that because it's easy to get those through a trademark. You know, if it's FXLT7Z43 is the name, don't do that. That's not a real brand. That's just someone gaming the system. So make sure you actually have a real company name. The second thing you need to be thinking about is a storefront name on Amazon, because when you set up on Amazon, especially once you register what's called brand registry, you're going to have a storefront. It's kind of like your own little dedicated page where people can see all your products. They can see your brand story. They can see other information, a couple of videos about you. You can do some cool stuff there. It's kind of like your own website within Amazon. And that storefront is going to have a name. Maybe it's the same as your company name, but a lot of times it might be something different. Maybe your company name is a holding company because you're involved in a lot of things. And so you have, if for me, Kevin King, it might be King Holdings, and that's the name of the company name, but my brand name might be Germshark or something like that. And that's what my company store would be under for this purposes of selling on Amazon. So you want to think about what's your company storefront name going to be. And then you have actual brand names. So sometimes I like to actually name my products with a brand name. You don't have to do this. You know, you could, for example, one of my older brands is called UActive Sports. It was a sporting brand. I don't sell this brand anymore, but it was called UActive Sports. And under UActive Sports, that was the company was my company. Let's call it King Holdings. And then under that was the storefront or the brand UActive Sports. And under that, every single product I did had its own brand name. So I did an ab roller, and I called it the Ab Wow Dragon. And then I did a pull-up bar, and it had a different name. And you don't have to go to the extreme. It just could be the UActive Sports pull-up bar, the UActive Sports ab roller. But I like to narrow it down because it has a ring to it. It helps me in the marketing and differentiation. That's something that you could think about as well. Make sure your names are easy to spell. If it's something crazy, people are going to have trouble spelling it, especially if you're doing a lot of outside marketing, like on TikTok, or people are going to be like, I saw this TikTok video, but how do you spell, that name? It's some French sounding name. I don't know how to spell it. If they can't spell it, it's going to be an issue. So try to make it easy to spell. Make it something that's memorable, something that you hear it on the radio as you're driving your car, you'll remember that name. It's not something like, what was the name of that thing? It was something convoluted, but it's something that's easy to remember. You can use all kinds of tools. ChatGPT is probably one of the best, but there's a lot of other tools that tie into AI, like the Namelix and stuff that will help you come up with brand names and brand ideas. And they'll even go out and they'll check and see if the social media handles are available on those. But that's something that I recommend that you do. Something else you need to be thinking about is, can you get the .com for this? There's a lot of domain extensions out there, .net, .xyz, .io, .ai, all these. But if your brand can get the .com, that's what you should strive for. Always try to get the .com because that's the default, but what most people will go to. If you can't get that, you just got a killer name and all you can get is the .net or something on your domain name, that's probably okay, but try to get those .coms. And my rule generally is if I cannot get the .com, I go on to another name, unless it's just a absolutely killer name. And then I'll try to get the other domains if it's relevant to AI or something else. Another thing that you want to pay attention to is what's called your IP, or intellectual property. And this is a critical step that a lot of people overlook at the beginning. One, because it typically costs a little bit of money, and they don't have a lot of money when they're starting. But it's something that can come back and bite you. Like, for example, the company you're watching now, Helium 10, the Freedom Ticket. When the guys that originally started this went to sell this company in 2019, they had a logo on the brand and the name. But when they did the trademark, when they started the company years before, when they were just getting going, they didn't actually fill out the paperwork right. And so when it came time to sell the company, there was an issue where someone could have come in and actually taken the name away. And they had to do some fancy dancing with some lawyers to actually fix that problem. Otherwise, they couldn't sell the company. So you want to get this stuff right from day one, because it can come back, and cutting corners here can come back and bite you in the butt later. There's a lot of people on Fiverr that will do like trademark searches and stuff and copyright searches. Be very careful. There might be a couple good ones out there, but be very careful. Rich Goldstein, who's going to be speaking in a module coming up, is one of the best when it comes to e-commerce and IP. That's who I recommend. But it's crucial that you do this right. And if you don't have a lot of money to spend at the beginning, you can do it a little bit cheaper. And there's a few different ways, but just make sure you do it right. There's three things you got to pay attention to. There's trademarks, and trademarks are like a brand name. Yeah, you can get and logos. It's like the swoosh in Nike, or the word Nike. Those are trademarks. They're what you do business by, or what represents your business. The Apple is a brand name, and the little apple with a little bite out of it, that's part of their logo. Those are things that you can get trademarked. Trademarks can take a while to get. In the United States, can take 8-9 months to get a final trademark with a final document. So it's something you want to start from day one. And you don't want to get into a situation where you create a product and you get the name all over it, and 3 months into it, you're like, you find out that I can't use that name. It's too similar to something else. I didn't even know somebody else had this. So you want to do that stuff up front. There's websites like Trademarkia or Google Trademarks where you can do these basic searches. And then once you do a cursory search, then you want to have a lawyer actually do the real search. They can search deep into the database and look at a lot of conflicting stuff that's not available publicly online. But you can do the cursory search with something like Trademarkia. But a trademark is something that's critical. It's also critical for selling on Amazon as a brand, because once you have that trademark, it opens up a lot of doors on Amazon for additional reporting. Amazon will share a lot of additional data with you. It will give you additional features like the extended A+ content, the A++ content, allow you to do some different types of advertising like Amazon Posts and different other things that are only available if you have that trademark. So getting that trademark is crucial. If you're not sure if this product is going to work, then maybe do a trademark that's doesn't tie you into a niche. You'd be like, I'm thinking about doing sporting goods and I'm thinking about doing pets. You might not want to do a trademark that is only for pets or only for sporting goods. You might want to do something that's a little bit more generic or towards the avatar, so that way you could pivot. Or if you're confident, you could go all in. Another thing is copyrights. Copyrights are what you can do. It's like on music or written words. So music, titles, written words, listing, anything that's written. Copyrights are cheap. They're like $40, $50. I think the filing fee might be a little bit more than that, but it's actually, they're not super expensive to get a copyright, and they're fairly straightforward to get. But the trademark is going to cost you anywhere from $325 for a U.S. filing fee and up, depending on the category and how many categories you do, plus a little bit of legal fees. So that could end up costing you $1,000, $2,000. You can also get trademarks in other countries and apply them in different Amazon marketplaces. So sometimes it's easier to get a trademark, say in Germany, and you can apply that to the U.S. marketplace. But what that doesn't do is give you legal protection. It just gives you Amazon, opens up doors on Amazon. But if you have a trademark in Germany and you're selling on Amazon in the U.S., you can use the trademark from Germany to open up this additional reporting and features on Amazon in the U.S. But if you have an actual legal issue in the U.S. marketplace, that German trademark is not going to apply. So you're going to want to actually get a trademark in the U.S. as well. So it's best to have a trademark in the country where you're selling. And sometimes that means you have to have multiple trademarks. And there's ways to group trademarks together, to do them in batches, or you can do them individually. But that's something that Rich will be talking about when he goes more in depth in this. Also, there's patents. Patents are the third type of IP. The patents are for inventions. And there's two types of patents. There's a design patent, which is basically the way it looks. And then there's a utility patent, which is the way it works. Design patents are pretty straightforward and cost a few $1,000s. And you can get those in about a year or two. A utility patent takes a little bit longer, a bigger write-up, and those can take a few years to actually get. But the utility patents are stronger of the ones. It's where you can actually really sue people strongly. But patents are something that a lot of people skip, and there's always a runway when you file a patent. People can still, even though you filed the patent, people have a year up until the patent, like a design patent, they have a year to actually still make the product before it's official. So people will ease in and still sell your product, and nothing you can do about it until it's officially issued. So if you're not sure, you could hold off initially on a patent unless you just got some amazing new invention, and then make sure the products work and then file for the patent, because you're not really giving up but a few months of runway on that. So that's an option there if you're tight on budget. The next thing you want to do is you want to form a company. And I would form the company, if possible, in the marketplace that you're selling in. You can be a European-based company and sell in the U.S. It just complicates it. I would set up a subsidiary in the marketplace you're selling in, if possible, for tax reasons, for a lot of other reasons, that's, for importing reasons. There's just a lot of reasons to do it. Talk to your tax professional and your lawyers. It may not be the right thing in your case, but in most cases, it's the best way. In the U.S., there's several types of companies. You could have a sole proprietorship, which means it's just you, and there's nobody else involved. You can have a partnership, which is you and other people, or you and another company, or two companies, or three companies together. You can have a LLC, which is a limited liability company, which is kind of like a pass-through entity, where it's kind of like you, but you have the protections of a corporation. Or you can have a regular corporation, a C Corp or an S Corp, are the two types. There's advantages and disadvantages to every single one of them. Most Amazon sellers do what's called an LLC. It's the simplest. You can report on your personal tax return if you're a U.S. citizen, the LLC as a business. So it's a little bit easier, but it doesn't give you the full protections and some of the tax advantages that a C Corp will give you. For example, in a C Corp, there's a little known law in the U.S. that the first $10 million of an exit are tax-free if you do something right when you set it up from day one. And a lot of people don't do this. You have to do something right in the first 30 days. And there's a special, I think it's HS65. And so that could be an advantage. Depends on what you're trying to do. So you need to talk to a tax professional and a lawyer to see what are your ultimate goals and which is the best way. In some cases, you could have double taxation. If you're in Canada and you set up an LLC in the U.S., you may be paying taxes twice. For the U.S., and any money you bring back to Canada, you're paying taxes again on it. So in that case, you might not want to do it, or you might want to always pay all your Amazon stuff, never take the money out of the U.S. company until you absolutely have to, or move. There's all kinds of ways to move money around in the world. But those are the basics that you need to know. When you're filing IP, you can do it yourself, but I recommend actually using a lawyer, and I recommend at least doing the trademark from almost day one. Once you've kind of figured out what you're going to sell, I would recommend you actually go in and do the trademark right away, because that's going to open up brand registry. As soon as you file that trademark and you can show that to Amazon, even though it's in process, they will open up their brand registry, which gives you way advanced reporting. You can see a lot of keyword data. You get a lot of extra reports you can download and play with. It opens up all kinds of advertising opportunities that are closed otherwise. It gives you a higher level of control on your product listing. Remember that listing page we talked about in the last module? If someone comes in and tries to modify it, because you don't own the listing on Amazon, Amazon owns that listing. So they have different levels of permission. So if there's a basic level of permission, and then above that is a brand owner's or brand registered level of permission. And then there's the Amazon guide level permission. If you don't have brand registry, you're a sitting duck, basically. And someone can come in and change your pictures. They can mess with your listing, and there's not much you can do about it. So you want to make sure you get that brand registry for protection purposes and for the additional reporting and benefits that Amazon gives you. It's super, super important. You can always change later if you decide to change the name or something. You could change it later, but it's a vital part. It needs to be part of your planning. Another thing is, like I said, on domain names, make sure you can get the .com if you can. It just adds a lot of credibility. That's what people default to. So always try to get the .com if you can. Some people are like, well, what about Kevin? Manufacturing most of my products in China. Do I need to get patents and trademarks and stuff in China? The short answer is yes, but a lot of people don't do that in the beginning. You're probably okay in the beginning, just kind of skirting by. But if you're successful, you're going to want to do that. And there's lawyers that will specialize in that. Rich can point you in the direction of some people. But if you're selling in Germany, you might want to get a German specific for Germany or for Japan. But those are things that require more time and money. So when you're first starting, just do it in the local marketplace. But down the road, you're probably going to want to get it wherever you manufacture as well, just to give you that extra level of protection, because your U.S. patent or trademark does not apply in another marketplace, and vice versa. If you have one in Germany, it doesn't apply legally in the U.S. So if you have legal issues, you're going to have that. You can also copyright your packaging. As people are trying to knock off your packaging or knock off your listing, one of the things you can do is copyright the packaging. It's an easy and affordable way to keep people from messing around with you. So, and you can do that yourself. You don't have to have a lawyer. You can just file a form. You fill it out. It's like a 1-2 page form. And you send it in. Technically in the U.S., copyright occurs from the day you create the product legally. But a lot of times you can't prove that this is the day I created the product. So it's better to file the document and have that. Another important thing you got to be thinking about is insurance. And this is another area that a lot of new sellers skip. There's different types of insurance. There's what's called general liability insurance. And general liability insurance is probably going to cost you $400 to $600 a month. And this usually Amazon will actually ask you for this once you get to $10,000 in sales for 3 months in a row. Sometimes they ask you for it at the get-go, but they're technical, their rule, and this can always change, is 3 months in a row of $10,000 or more, you need to show them that you have general liability insurance. You can get this a lot of places. This is not the same as your homeowner's policy or some other insurance you have. It's a business license insurance. And it covers, usually want $1 million or $2 million policy. It basically covers, if someone in the Amazon warehouse trips and falls on your scooter that you're selling, and they sue you and Amazon, it covers that. Or if the UPS driver has an accident because he tripped over your Amazon box and he tries to sue you, it helps cover some of that. So that's a general cheap one, easy one to get. The second one that most people skip on is what's called product liability. And product liability insurance is if something is wrong with your product. If I eat this product, if I use this product and it burns me, and this hair dryer burns my scalp, that covers you for that. Someone sues you for that. And people will sue for the craziest things. So product liability insurance can be a little bit more expensive. It's adjusted every year based on your sales volume. So it's based on how many dollars you're selling and what you're selling. So the higher risk the product, the more it's going to cost. Those can be anywhere from $600-800 to as much as $20,000-30,000. So product liability insurance is not something you want to skimp out on. It's Ashlyn Haddon is going to be talking about that here in a module in a minute, where she'll actually go into detail and show you some case studies and examples of why you really need to actually have this. You don't have to get it from day one, but once you start selling, I would recommend you actually get it. And you can go low the first year. Your sales are going to be next to nothing, so it's probably not going to cost you much the first year, but the next year when they audit you, they'll ask you for some reports or tax reports, and it might go up a little bit. But if you're selling anything that is remotely dangerous, or even if you don't think it is, people will find a reason. And they're either coming after you or they're coming after your company. And so the way you set up the company, the LLC, the corporation, it's called the corporate shield, all that stuff matters. So this is all important stuff. I recommend you actually get with an attorney or a tax professional to set this stuff up properly. It'll cost you a little bit of money in the beginning, but it's the best way. If you can't do this, you just can't afford to do this, just understand you're playing with fire, and you need to do it as soon as you possibly can. The next thing you got to set up is your accounting systems. These are critical. You got to know your numbers. And a lot of people, they just work off an Excel spreadsheet, so they work off a piece of paper or something. But your accounting systems to set up from day one is super important, because how are you going to know what you're doing, if you're making money or not? The number one mistake a lot of people make is they don't set up a separate business account. You need to actually incorporate your company or form your company either in the state that you live in, or some people like to use Wyoming or Delaware or Nevada. There's states that have different advantages. Wyoming is another really popular one. It's a company called Wyoming Agents. They're popular because of their privacy. So a lot of people might set up in Wyoming. So you can go to wyomingagents.com and set something up pretty cheap, or you can do it in your local state, depending on what you want to do. But you want to set up that company, and then you want to take those documents down to the bank and set up a separate bank account for that business. Don't mix this with your personal stuff. Set up a separate debit card and a separate credit card that's completely separate from your personal finances. Don't be using your personal credit card to pay your Amazon bills or anything. Get this set up properly so that everything is separate. You don't have any issues with the IRS down the road. When you go to sell the company, everything is clean, and keep it as clean as possible. You want to set up QuickBooks Pro or Xero. Those are professional accounting programs. Now, Helium 10's got some stuff in it, and there's some other tools out there. Those are great for snapshots or just seeing general ideas, but they're not true accounting software. So those are cool. Like Helium 10 Profits is cool to use and gives you some ideas, and you can see a lot of numbers and stuff in there, but it's not a true piece of accounting software. You'll need QuickBooks Pro or Xero to actually do your final reports. And you can import stuff from Amazon straight into those. There's tools like A2X, and some of them do it directly, where you can just import all your Amazon reports. You don't have to be retyping everything. That will really make this streamlined for you. You're also going to want to get what's called an EIN, or Employee Identification Number, from the IRS. It's free to get. Usually you can just call, or you can go to the website and they'll sign you one pretty quickly. For some reason, they don't do it 24 hours a day. You got to do it like during business hours, some weird reason, I guess for security. But you'll need that number. You're going to need that number to import stuff into the United States. You're going to need that to file your taxes. But that'll be a separate number from a Social Security number. It's a business ID number. And you're going to need that. You're going to need that to set up your account on Amazon. Once you've opened your bank accounts and got everything set up, then you're good to go. Leak everything where it's appropriate and start using that. Fund the money in there. And you might want to consider at some point, you may not need this initially, but if you don't like doing books yourself, or you just hate math or checkbooks and all that stuff, you could hire a company that could do this. There's companies like CapForge. There's plenty of them in the Amazon space that will do all this bookkeeping for you. If you don't want to handle it, I've used them in the past, and I think they charge a couple $100 a month, and they'll do your basic bookkeeping. Now, they don't do your tax returns, so at the end of the year, you're still going to need a CPA or yourself or whoever's going to do it to actually file the actual audited and final document, but they'll at least do all the bookkeeping. And if they don't know something, they're like, what is this? What is this charge? And you just email them back, say, oh, that was for, I bought some printing paper or something, and they'll log it appropriately. So that's another option for you as well. Make sure you track all your startup costs, every little penny you spend, every little software you buy, every little sample you get, the logo design, all those kind of things. When it comes to logo design or product packaging, places like Fiverr, Fiverr, 2 R's.com, or Upwork. I like Upwork, or you can use Upwork.com. Or 99 Designs. The thing about 99 Designs, costs a little bit more, but you get anywhere from 20 to 100 people to design your logo for you. And you get to pick and choose which ones you like the best. And it's like a competition. So you get a lot more cool ideas that way. But those are different ways that you can get things designed. But make sure you keep track of all those costs as well. And make sure when you're setting up your accounting, if you're not familiar with how to set up accounting, your cost of goods sold, it's critical that you make sure that everything is in that cost of goods sold, not just the basic factory costs, but there's going to be other costs like what's called landing costs, where when the cost to ship it in, the cost to produce some of the packaging, the cost to do molds, all these different costs. You got to make sure that all that stuff is trackable. And then you want to set up stuff to track it by SKU. So SKU is stock keeping unit, is what that stands for. So each individual, you want to be able to know, not a general picture, did I make money or not? You want that'll be on your profit and loss statement, but you need to know on an individual, product by product, variation by variation level, which ones are making money and which ones are not. So you're going to have to set up systems to where you can track that. And sometimes things get commingled. Sometimes, you're buying the packaging and it's $1,000 for a bunch of boxes, but you're going to put 4 different colors in those boxes, and you're going to put little stickers on the outside that say this one's the black version, this is the white version, this is the red version. So, but you got to break that cost down of those 1,000 boxes into exactly which ones were for the red version, which ones were for the black version, and so on. That minute detail is very important, and a lot of people don't do that. And so that's something you got to set up from, and you can set that up from the get-go in your systems. It's all about the systems. If you don't know how to do that, you can hire one of these companies, and they'll help you do that for you. Or you could probably find someone either on Upwork or Fiverr that'll also help you do it. As far as taxes go, in the United States, it's IRS. So you're gonna have to pay taxes on your earnings. If you're profitable, if you lose money, you can usually use it as a deduction. If you're based outside the United States and you're selling in the U.S., you'll have to check your local regulations. But if you have a U.S. company, you'll still have to pay. Taking money out of the U.S., sometimes Amazon will actually withhold money if you're foreign-based. So they withhold money automatically, and then you got to kind of prove to get it back. So there's a whole bunch of different rules that we're not going to go into here, but check with the accounting professionals on that. But as far as sales tax and the state-by-state level, Amazon collects that. So there's, I think, 45 of the 50 states in the U.S. collect tax, and Amazon will collect that on your behalf and pay it to the government. So you don't have to worry about the tax. Now, if you're on Shopify or you're selling outside of Amazon, you got to collect it and pay it, which complicates things. There's tools like TaxJar and stuff that help you with that. But on Amazon, you don't need to worry about the sales tax. Amazon will collect it and pay it on your behalf. But where it gets confusing is they show it in your sales number. So at the end of the year, and usually by January 31st, you get what's called a 1099. And Amazon will break down. They'll say, this is how much money we paid you. But it's not how much money they paid you. They show how much money you sold. So it can get a little tricky. It can get a little confusing. They'll show this is your total sales, and this is your total disbursements, and this is your tax. So you got to kind of break it out. So if you don't do this right, you might end up paying money on the sales on your taxes, money on the sales tax that Amazon collected. So there's a lot of little things that you got to really pay attention to on that 1099. You also probably want to get a sales tax ID in the state that you sell in. The sales tax ID basically means you're allowed to sell in that state. Any state you have a presence in, like the state you live in or your office is in, or if you have a warehouse that you have employees in another state, you'll need one there too. It's called Nexus. So you'll want to get a tax ID for that. And then when you report your taxes, like I'm in Texas, so I'll report my sales tax, and anything that came through my own website, I pay the tax on. I'll put it on there. But anything that Amazon paid, it's included in my total sales report, but there's a note that says, this was collected by a marketplace. I'm not responsible for this. So that's how you handle that. So to set up your account, we're going to have a demo here from somebody, and look further down in this module. There's a demo from somebody at Helium 10 that's showing you how to actually open up your account and set that up. But basically, you're going to go to sellercentral.amazon.com, and you're going to choose the account type. You could start off with an individual while you're just kind of getting going. It's not going to change a whole lot of things. But once you get selling, you're going to want to switch that to professional, which means you're paying $40 a month. Now, if you set up for the professional and you later don't end up using it, Amazon will usually stop charging you after 3 or 4 months of non-use. Or if they don't, you can oftentimes go back and say, hey, I haven't used this in 7 months. Can you refund me? And they'll refund a bunch of it back. So don't worry too much about that. But professional account is, like I said, is where you want to be. When you set up an account, you're going to probably have to go through a verification process. Usually it requires you submitting some tax documents or a utility statement or a copy of your ID. And then a lot of times Amazon will do a video interview. They'll send you a special little link, and you got to pop on and like hold up your ID next to your face. And just to make sure you're legit. It's called Know Your Customer. It's a new rule. It's the Inform Act. So that's required in the U.S. now. It's to prevent money laundering and stuff. So you have to fill out a few forms that kind of tell them who you are, and they got to make sure that you're legit, not just some scammer. That doesn't prevent scammers. Scammers still get in there, but it prevents a lot of that problem. So be expected for it to take a little bit of a process to do that. If you live outside the United States, certain countries you cannot sell on Amazon. Most countries you can, but there's some countries in Africa and Asia that Amazon won't allow you to sell from. So make sure you check the list on Amazon's website to make sure you're actually permitted to actually sell in that country. You'll need a credit card, or sometimes a debit card will also work. You'll need all your business information info, your bank account information. You'll need documentation. So you want to make sure you set all that stuff up before you sit down to set up your Seller Central account. On your Seller Central account, make sure you set up two-factor authentication using the Authy app or texting just to keep someone from hacking in and messing with it. There are people that do attack Seller Central accounts, so make sure you have the two-step done on that. The other thing that's important is knowing that this seller account is actually an asset. Seller accounts are worth money on Amazon. There's a whole business. Remember I said earlier, there's a whole ecosystem around selling it on Amazon. There's a whole business of people selling seller accounts and vendor accounts. In fact, just recently, I had 3 different Amazon old accounts that I quit selling. I didn't need them anymore. They're just sitting there, just gathering dust. I sold them for $12,000. Someone came in and said, we want this account, and they'll buy it because one of them had a certain number of reviews on it. One of them had certain privileges for payments on how the payouts go. So they're actually an asset that's worth money. So if you end up doing this business and it doesn't work out for you, a year or two from now, you might get, I think the lowest I've ever seen one go for is $500, or you might get thousands of dollars. A good one can go for $5,000 to $10,000, maybe $15,000. If you have a vendor account, which most of you aren't going to have, but if you're watching this and you've been selling on Amazon for a long time and you have a vendor account that goes back 4, 5, 10 years, that could be worth $50,000, $100,000. I've seen one go for $500,000. So these are assets. So protect that account at all costs. So take a look at the video that's included in this module. It'll do a walkthrough of how to set up your Amazon Central account. We'll see you again soon.